The rain began as a mistake. The forecast had been clear for weeks. The storm would stay over the northern sea, far from the research outpost built on the red plains of Kepri 9. The planet was strange but predictable, its weather patterns studied and mapped by human scientists with careful patience. Nothing about today was supposed to be dangerous. Yet the first drops hit the metal roof with a sound that made everyone freeze. At first it was soft, almost gentle, a tapping that could have been dust or debris carried by the wind. Then the sensors screamed. Corrosive precipitation, atmospheric instability, magnetic distortion rising fast. Within seconds, the sky outside the observation windows turned dark, as if night had fallen all at once. Rain poured down in thick, slanted lines, glowing faintly as it struck the ground. The air itself seemed to vibrate. Alarms echoed through the outpost. "Seal external hatches," someone shouted over the noise. The small human base came alive with movement. Researchers ran through narrow corridors, boots striking metal floors, hands slamming emergency panels. Bulkheads slid into place with heavy thuds. Lights shifted from white to red as the station entered lockdown. Dr. Mara Ellison was in the lower lab when the emergency shutters dropped. She barely made it through the doorway before the corridor sealed behind her. The sound of metal locking into metal echoed like a final decision. She stood there for a moment, breathing hard, her heart pounding as if she had run miles instead of meters. The lab was quiet, too quiet. Across the room, Commander Lucas Rehan looked up from a console, surprise flashing across his face before training took over. "Mara," he said. "You okay?" She nodded, pushing damp hair out of her eyes. "Yeah, I was checking the soil samples when the alarms went off." Lucas moved quickly, already scanning system readouts. "Storm came in early, way early." "That's not possible," she said without thinking. "The models, I know," he replied. His voice was calm, but his jaw was tight. "But it's here." Another alarm chimed, lower and more dangerous. "Internal separation failure. Shelter section be sealed." Mara's stomach dropped. "That's us." Lucas didn't deny it. He tapped commands into the console, then frowned. "Other sections are isolated. Until the storm passes, we're locked in here." "How long?" she asked. He hesitated. "Unknown." The rain outside grew louder, no longer a tapping but a roar. The windows darkened as protective layers slid over them, leaving only dim external sensor feeds. On the screen, the storm looked alive, twisting and folding in on itself, lightning flashing sideways through the clouds. Mara wrapped her arms around herself. She had faced danger before. Everyone on Kepri 9 had. But this felt different. Wrong. They stood together in the center of the lab, surrounded by half-finished experiments, glowing tanks of alien microbes, and equipment that hummed softly as if unaware of the danger outside. Lucas cleared his throat. "Okay, first things first. Systems check." They moved automatically, falling into routines they had practiced 100 times. Power levels, air filtration, structural integrity, emergency supplies. As they worked, silence stretched between them, broken only by the sound of rain and the low hum of machinery. They had known each other for 3 years. 3 years of shared missions, late-night problem-solving, near disasters survived by teamwork and stubborn human refusal to quit. They trusted each other completely when it came to survival. Everything else they avoided. Mara finished checking the life support panel and turned toward Lucas. "Air's stable, filters are holding. For now," he said. "Power is good, but external sensors are degrading. The storm's messing with the electronics." "Of course it is," she muttered. Another tremor shook the outpost. The floor vibrated beneath their feet, strong enough to rattle equipment and send a few loose tools clattering to the ground. Mara swallowed. That didn't feel small. Lucas steadied himself against a table. "Pressure waves." "The rain isn't just corrosive, it's interacting with the planet's magnetic field." "Which means," she asked, "which means this storm is following the rules anymore." That was the worst thing he could have said. Hours passed slowly. The storm did not weaken. If anything, it grew stronger. External readings became useless, numbers spiking and dropping without pattern. The AI assistant flickered and shut itself down to avoid permanent damage. By the time emergency lighting switched on, Mara felt like the walls were closing in. She sat on the floor with her back against a storage unit, knees drawn up. Lucas paced nearby, restless energy in every step. This was supposed to be a routine rotation, she said quietly. Collect samples, update maps, go home. Lucas stopped pacing and looked at her. Humans don't explore because it's safe. She gave a weak smile. No, we explore because we think we can handle anything. And most of the time, he said, we're right. Another violent shudder ran through the outpost. This one knocked Mara sideways, her shoulder slamming into the metal cabinet. Pain flared, sharp and sudden. Lucas was at her side instantly. Hey, you hurt. I'm fine, she said automatically, then winced as she tried to move her arm. He crouched beside her, careful hands checking for injury. You're not fine. It's just a bruise, she insisted. Still. His touch was gentle, practiced, but there was something else there too, concern that went deeper than duty. Their eyes met. For a moment the storm outside seemed very far away. Mara looked down first, her heart beating too fast. We should keep checking the structure. Lucas stood slowly, giving her space. Yeah, right. They returned to work, but the distance between them felt heavier than the sealed bulkheads. By the next cycle, exhaustion set in. Without the AI, everything took longer. Calculations had to be done by hand. Readings double-checked. Decisions weighed carefully because mistakes could not be corrected easily. The rain never stopped. At one point, Mara approached the only remaining external camera feed. The image was distorted, colors bleeding together, but she could still see the ground outside dissolving under the constant assault. The alien soil smoked where the rain touched it. This planet doesn't want us here, she said softly. Lucas joined her, arms crossed. Planets don't want anything, they just are, she glanced at him. That sounds like something you tell yourself to stay calm, he shrugged. It works. Silence settled again. Eventually Lucas broke it. Mara, if things get worse. They will, she said. If they do, he continued, we need to talk about priorities. She turned to face him fully. Meaning power may need to be rerouted. Some sections could go dark to keep life support running. Her throat tightened. Including this lab, possibly. So we could end up in total darkness, listening to the rain eat through the walls. He didn't deny it. Mara took a deep breath. Okay. Lucas raised an eyebrow. That's it? What else should I say? She asked. Panic won't help. Complaining won't change physics. A small smile tugged at his mouth. That's why you're here. Because I don't complain. Because you don't give up. The words hung between them. Another alert sounded, structural integrity dropping, slowly but steadily. Lucas exhaled. We're closer to the storm's core than we thought. Mara felt a chill that had nothing to do with temperature. And if the shelter fails, he looked at her honestly, then we do what humans always do. Which is, we adapt or we die trying. She nodded, accepting the truth of it. Fear was there, coiled tight in her chest, but beneath it was something stronger. The same thing that had driven humanity across oceans, into space, and onto worlds like this. Stubborn hope. The lights flickered. Mara reached out without thinking, her hand brushing Lucas's arm. He didn't pull away. Outside, the rain roared louder than ever, as if the planet itself was testing how much they could endure. Locked inside by the storm, with no escape and no more pretending that everything was normal, two humans stood their ground. And the storm was only just beginning. The storm did not sleep. When the lights stabilized again, they were dimmer than before, casting long shadows across the lab. Time lost meaning without a clear day, night cycle. The only clock that mattered was the slow countdown of power reserves and structural strength. Mara sat at the work table, carefully writing numbers on a thin tablet with a stylus. Without the AI, every calculation had to be done by hand. She double-checked each line, knowing a single mistake could cost them air, heat, or power. Lucas stood nearby, adjusting a wall panel that refused to stay quiet. The metal creaked under his hands, protesting every movement. "The rain frequency changed," he said. "It's hitting in waves now." Mara looked up. "That's not good." "No," he agreed. "But at least it's predictable for the moment." She rubbed her eyes. They burned from staring at numbers too long. "How long do you think it's been?" Lucas glanced at his wrist display. "About 14 hours since lockdown. Feels longer." "Yeah." Another vibration passed through the floor, gentler than before but constant, like the planet was breathing. Mara stood and walked to the supply cabinet. She pulled out 2 ration packs and tossed one to Lucas. "Eat. You get grumpy when you don't." He caught it with a tired smirk. "I'm always grumpy." "Exactly my point." They ate in silence, the food bland but warm. Outside, the rain hissed and crackled against the outpost shell. Every sound felt closer now, louder, as if the walls were thinning. After a while, Lucas spoke again. "I've been thinking. That usually means bad news." "Not bad, just real," he hesitated. "If the storm keeps interfering with electronics, we may lose more than sensors." Mara stiffened. "Life support?" "Not yet. But the backup systems rely on the same power grid." She set her ration aside. "So we need to lower consumption." "Yes. Which means less heat, less light, no non-essential equipment." She nodded slowly. "Do it." Lucas paused. "You sure?" She met his eyes. "I'd rather be cold than dead." He didn't argue. The lights dimmed further and the air grew slightly cooler. Mara wrapped her arms around herself, but she didn't complain. Hours passed. They rotated rest periods, though neither of them truly slept. Every noise jerked them awake. Every tremor made Mara's heart race. At some point, the storm changed again. The sound outside shifted from constant roar to sharp impacts, like something heavy striking the outpost again and again. Lucas checked the structural display, his face tightening. Localized pressure spikes, the rains forming dense clusters. "Like hail?" Mara asked. "Worse, liquid with mass and speed." The outpost shuddered violently. A storage rack tipped over, spilling tools across the floor. Mara stumbled, grabbing the edge of the table. Lucas caught her elbow, steadying her. "Okay," she said breathlessly. "That one scared me." "Me too," he admitted. They moved closer to the center of the room, away from the walls. The temperature dropped another degree. Minutes stretched into an hour, then came the silence. The rain didn't stop, but the alarms did. Mara noticed it first. "Lucas." "Yeah, the alerts, they stopped." He frowned, checking the panel. "They didn't reset, they died." A sharp chill ran through her. "That means the sensors are gone," he finished. "We're blind." Mara let out a slow breath. "So we don't know how bad it is anymore." "No, or how close we are to failure." "No," she laughed softly, a thin sound. "Of course." Lucas watched her carefully. "You okay?" "I don't know," she said honestly. "Ask me again when this is over." He nodded. With nothing left to monitor, there was nothing to distract them. No screens to stare at. No numbers to adjust. Just the storm. And each other. Mara sat down on the floor again, pulling her knees close. Lucas joined her a short distance away, his back against the opposite cabinet. "You ever think about home?" she asked suddenly. "All the time," he said. "What do you miss?" He thought for a moment. "Rain," she snorted despite herself. "Really? Earth rain," he clarified. "The kind that smells clean, the kind you can walk through." Mara smiled faintly. "I miss noise, cities, too many people, too many lights." "Funny," Lucas said. "We came all this way for quiet, and found the loudest storm in recorded history." They shared a tired smile. The outpost shook again, harder this time. Something cracked nearby. A thin line appeared along the wall, glowing faintly as emergency sealant activated. Mara stared at it. "That wasn't there before." Lucas followed her gaze. "Microfracture. The sealant should hold." Should, she repeated. He leaned his head back against the cabinet. Mara, there's something I need to tell you, her breath caught. That sounds serious. It is. He didn't look at her. If we lose pressure suddenly, the emergency suits are in the next section. Her heart sank. We can't reach them. No, silence fell again, heavier than before. Mara stared at the floor, then slowly turned toward him. Is that all you wanted to tell me? Lucas hesitated. No. The storm outside roared louder as if daring them to speak. I should have said this earlier, he continued. Back when we still pretended this was just another assignment, she swallowed. Said what? That I didn't keep my distance because I didn't care. Her chest tightened. Lucas, I kept it because I did, he said quietly. Too much. Mara closed her eyes. Fear, exhaustion, and something warm all tangled together inside her. You don't get to say that now, she whispered. I know, he said. But if this place tears apart, I don't want my last honest moment to be silence. She opened her eyes and looked at him. He looked tired, older, human. You're an idiot, she said softly. He smiled weakly. Probably. She shifted closer, not touching but no longer pretending distance mattered. I was scared too, she admitted. Scared of wanting something I couldn't control. Lucas let out a slow breath. Seems control is overrated. Another violent impact slammed into the outpost. The floor buckled slightly, throwing them together. This time, neither pulled away. Lucas steadied her, one hand braced behind her back. Mara gripped his sleeve, knuckles white. They stayed like that, listening to the storm try to break them. The lights flickered again, then went out completely. Total darkness swallowed the lab. For a moment Mara couldn't breathe. Lucas, she said, her voice shaking. I'm here, he replied immediately. I've got you. His hand found hers in the dark, firm and warm. She squeezed back. Emergency power kicked in seconds later, casting a faint blue glow. The outpost was still standing, but barely. Lucas checked the panel one last time. Power reserves at critical, Mara nodded. How long? Maybe a few hours. She looked at the sealed walls, the cracks slowly spreading despite the sealant. Then we use them well. He met her gaze. Humans always do. Outside, the storm gathered itself for another strike. Inside, two humans stayed awake together, refusing to let fear have the final word. The cold became constant. Not sharp enough to kill them quickly, but slow and heavy, settling into their bones. The emergency lights stayed on, dim and blue, barely strong enough to push back the shadows. The storm outside had changed again. It no longer hit in wild bursts. It pressed down, steady and crushing, like the planet was leaning its full weight against the outpost. Mara sat with her back against the wall, wrapped in a thermal blanket. Lucas sat close now, closer than before, his shoulder almost touching hers. There was no reason to keep space anymore. Pretending had taken too much energy, and they had none left to spare. The air felt thinner, though the readings said it was still safe. Maybe it was just fear making every breath feel important. Lucas broke the silence. I found something. Mara looked up. Please tell me it's good. It's possible, he said carefully. He stood and walked to the damaged console near the wall. The screen flickered weakly as he tapped it. The storm knocked out most external systems, he continued. But it also overloaded a few old maintenance lines, ones we never used. Mara pushed herself to her feet and joined him. Meaning there's a chance we can reroute power manually, bypass the main grid. Her heart beat faster. To what? To the outer stabilization field, she frowned. That field barely does anything in normal weather. True, Lucas said, but this storm isn't normal. It's feeding on predictable energy flow. If we introduce noise, chaos, it might weaken. Mara stared at the screen. You want to fight a planetary storm with bad wiring? He gave a tired smile. Sounds like a human plan, doesn't it? She laughed softly, then stopped. What's the risk? He didn't answer right away. Lucas. He turned to face her. The reroute has to be done from the external junction. The words hit hard. Mara shook her head immediately. No. "There's no other access," he said. "The internal controls are fried." "No," she repeated louder now. "You go out there, you die." "The suit can hold for a few minutes," he argued, "long enough to flip the manual switches." "And if it fails," she demanded. He met her eyes. "Then the storm won't be our problem anymore." She grabbed his arm. "You don't get to decide that alone." "I'm not," he said quietly. "I'm telling you." Her grip tightened. "You're asking me to watch you walk into that rain." "I'm asking you to help me save this place," he replied. "Save us." Mara turned away, breathing hard. Her mind raced through numbers, probabilities, past failures, and human stubbornness. She hated that his plan made sense. She hated that there was no better one. Finally she spoke. "If anyone goes out there, we do it together." Lucas stared at her. "No." "Yes," she said firmly. "You said it yourself. No heroics alone." "That storm will kill you," he said. "It might kill you too," she shot back. "At least this way we double our chances." He looked away, jaw clenched. Outside, the outpost groaned under another wave of pressure. The crack in the wall widened slightly, the sealant struggling to keep up. Time was running out. Lucas exhaled slowly. "All right." Mara turned back to him. "All right." "We go together," he said, "but we do it smart." They moved quickly, adrenaline cutting through exhaustion. The emergency suits were old but functional, designed for brief exposure, not storms like this. Mara checked seals while Lucas checked oxygen flow. Their hands shook, but they didn't stop. As they worked, neither spoke. There was nothing left to say that hadn't already been said. The airlock loomed at the end of the corridor. A heavy door marked with warning symbols faded by time. The sound of the storm was louder here, a deep, angry roar. Lucas paused with his hand on the control panel. "Once we open this, there's no turning back." Mara stepped beside him, her helmet tucked under her arm. "We've been past that point for a while." He nodded and initiated the cycle. The inner door sealed behind them with a hiss. The chamber filled with cold light as systems came online. They locked their helmets into place, the world narrowing to glass and breath. Mara's voice sounded strange over the comm. "You still with me?" "Always," Lucas replied. The outer door opened. The storm hit them like a wall. Rain slammed into their suits with terrifying force, each drop a burning strike. The wind screamed, trying to tear them from the platform. The ground beneath their boots vibrated, unstable and alive. Mara struggled to stay upright. "This is worse than the feeds showed." "I know," Lucas shouted. "Stay low." They moved slowly, painfully, gripping handholds bolted into the outpost exterior. Every step felt like pushing against an ocean. The junction box was only 20 meters away. It might as well have been kilometers. Mara's suit alarm chirped. Minor breach warnings flashed across her visor as the rain ate at the outer layers. "Suit integrity dropping," she said, panic creeping into her voice. "Keep going," Lucas urged. "We're almost there." They reached the junction at last, a heavy metal panel half buried in alien soil. Lucas pried it open with shaking hands. Inside, wires glowed faintly, energy flowing in ways they were never meant to. "Tell me what to do," Mara said. "Hold the stabilizer line steady," Lucas replied. "If it spikes, pull back." He reached for the manual switch. The storm reacted instantly. The ground shook violently, throwing Mara off balance. Lucas grabbed her arm, anchoring her. "Lucas," she cried. "I've got you," he said. Now he flipped the switch. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the storm screamed. The rain pattern broke apart, its steady pressure collapsing into wild turbulence. Lightning flashed straight down instead of sideways. The wind howled in confusion. Inside the outpost, systems flickered back to life. Mara's suit alarms eased slightly. "It's working." Lucas stared at the sky. "We did it." But the victory was brief. A massive shockwave tore through the ground. The junction box ripped free, dragging Lucas with it. "Lucas!" Mara screamed. He slammed hard against the platform, the wind pulling him toward the edge. Without thinking, Mara lunged, grabbing his arm with both hands. Pain shot through her shoulders as the storm tried to claim him. "Don't let go," he shouted. "Whoa," she cried back, teeth clenched. For long seconds nothing existed but force and will. Then the storm weakened. Just enough. Lucas scrambled back onto the platform, collapsing beside her. They lay there gasping, rain still falling but no longer deadly. "We're alive," he said in disbelief. Mara laughed, a wild, shaking sound. "Humans," she said, "too stubborn to die." They dragged themselves back inside the airlock, sealing it just as another tremor passed through the ground. The inner door closed. Silence fell. They removed their helmets slowly, hands shaking. The outpost lights brightened as power stabilized. Systems hummed back to life. Mara sank to the floor, exhausted beyond words. Lucas sat beside her, equally spent. "We changed the storm," he said quietly. Mara nodded. "It'll take time, but it's breaking apart." He looked at her, eyes soft. "You saved me." She shook her head. "We saved each other." Outside, the rain began to lose its fury, no longer a roar but a fading echo. Inside, two humans breathed, alive, knowing that whatever came next, they would face it together. The outpost felt different after the storm changed. It was still damaged, still cold, still dangerous. But the constant pressure was gone. The walls no longer groaned like they were about to give up. The rain outside continued to fall, but now it sounded tired, uneven, like something running out of strength. Mara lay on the floor longer than she meant to. Her body ached everywhere. Every muscle felt heavy, as if gravity itself had increased. She stared at the ceiling lights, brighter now, steady instead of flickering. Lucas sat nearby, his back against the wall, breathing slowly. His suit lay beside him, scratched and scarred. He kept flexing his hands as if checking that they still worked. "We should move," he said after a while. His voice was quiet but steady. Mara nodded, though she didn't move right away. "Give me one more minute," he smiled faintly. "Take two." When she finally pushed herself up, the room spun. Lucas noticed immediately and stood, placing a hand near her elbow, not grabbing, just ready. "I'm okay," she said. "I know," he replied. "I'm still helping." They moved through the lab together, checking systems that had come back online. Screens glowed with returning data. Life support was stable. Internal pressure held. The crack in the wall had stopped spreading, the sealant finally winning. Mara let out a long breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. "We bought ourselves time." "Yes," Lucas said. "Not safety, but time." Outside, the storm map showed chaos. The massive system that once covered half the planet was breaking into smaller, weaker cells. Unpredictable but fading. "The storm didn't like being messed with," Mara said. Lucas nodded. "Nothing ever does." They sat at the main console, shoulder to shoulder, reviewing incoming signals. Weak at first, then stronger. Mara froze. "Lucas." "I see it," he said. A blinking icon appeared on the long-range communicator. Incoming signal. Lucas activated it, hands careful. Static filled the room, then a voice broke through, distorted but clear enough. "Kepri 9 Outpost. This is Recovery Vessel Horizon Dawn. Do you read?" Mara's throat tightened. She leaned closer to the console. "This is Dr. Mara Ellison. We read you." There was a pause, then relief poured through the speaker. "We thought we lost you. The storm scrambled everything." "We almost were lost," Lucas said. "Outpost still standing but damaged." "Understood," the voice replied. "Storm activity is dropping faster than expected. We can attempt approach in approximately 2 hours." 2 hours. Mara closed her eyes. They had made it this far. 2 more hours felt possible. "We'll be ready," she said. The signal cut, leaving the room quiet again. Lucas leaned back in his chair, exhaustion finally catching up to him. "You hear that?" "Yeah," Mara said softly. "Sounds like hope." The next hour passed in careful preparation. They rerouted power fully back to life support and communications. Non-essential systems stayed offline. The outpost felt smaller now, stripped down to what truly mattered. Mara checked medical supplies, cleaning a deep scrape on Lucas's arm from the storm. He watched her work calm, trusting. "You didn't even notice this, did you?" she asked. He shrugged. "Hard to notice pain when the universe is trying to kill you." She shook her head. "You're impossible. Still alive, though." She finished bandaging his arm, fingers lingering just a moment longer than necessary. Neither of them commented on it. Another tremor passed through the floor, but this one was weak, more like an afterthought. "The storm's dying," Lucas said. "Yes," Mara replied. "But planets remember." He looked at her. "You thinking about the future?" She nodded. "They'll study this storm for years, maybe decades. And us?" She smiled faintly. "Footnotes, the humans who refuse to behave properly." Lucas chuckled. "That sounds right." As the second hour approached, the outpost began to warm slightly as systems stabilized. The air felt easier to breathe. The sound of rain softened further, turning into something almost gentle. Mara found herself standing near the observation window again. The protective layers were still down, but external feeds were clearer now. She could see the alien plane, scarred and steaming, but intact. Lucas joined her. "Hard to believe this almost ended everything." "It still could have," she said. "We were lucky." He shook his head. "Luck doesn't rewire systems in a storm like that. That was choice." She looked at him. "You really believe that?" "I do," he said. "Humans survive because we choose to act even when it scares us." She turned fully toward him. "You scared me." "I know," he said quietly. "I scared myself too." They stood there close enough to feel each other's warmth. "I meant what I said earlier," Lucas continued, "about not wanting silence." Mara nodded. "I know." Another alert chimed. "External approach vector detected." "They're coming," she said. Relief washed over the room, heavy and warm. But with it came something else. An understanding that once the doors opened, everything would change. The Horizon Dawn appeared on the external feed, cutting through thinning clouds, lights bright against the dark sky. It moved carefully, like a predator unsure if the danger was truly gone. "Docking sequence initiated," the ship announced. The outpost shuddered gently as clamps engaged. Metal connected to metal. For the first time since the storm began, the structure felt supported. Mara let out a laugh that surprised even her. "We're really getting out." Lucas smiled, but his eyes stayed on her. "Yeah." The inner airlock cycled. Fresh air flowed in, cleaner, warmer. Voices echoed from the corridor beyond. "Outpost team, prepare for transfer." Mara and Lucas gathered what little they needed. As they moved toward the airlock, Mara paused. She looked back at the lab, the place where fear had stripped everything down to truth, where pretending had stopped. Lucas noticed. "You okay?" she nodded. "Just saying goodbye." They stepped through the airlock together. The rescue crew greeted them with relief and quiet respect. No cheers, no questions yet, just nods and steady hands guiding them aboard. As they walked into the Horizon Dawn, Mara felt the ship's gravity settle around her. Safe. Controlled, human. She glanced at Lucas. He met her gaze, something unspoken passing between them. The storm outside continued to fade, breaking apart into harmless rain. The planet calmed as if exhausted by its own anger. Inside the ship, two humans carried the weight of what they had faced, and the knowledge that when everything else had been stripped away, they had chosen each other. And that choice had made all the difference. The Horizon Dawn pulled away from the outpost slowly, carefully, as if the planet might change its mind at the last second. From the observation bay, Kepri 9 looked calmer now. The clouds were thinner. The rain fell in soft, broken lines instead of endless sheets. The red plains below were scarred, darkened where the storm had burned the soil, but they were still there, still solid, still standing. Mara sat on a bench near the window, wrapped in a clean thermal jacket someone had given her. The warmth felt strange after so many hours of cold. Her hands trembled slightly, not from fear anymore, but from release. When the danger finally leaves, the body remembers everything it was holding back. Lucas stood a few steps away, speaking quietly with a medical officer. His arm was properly treated now, wrapped in clean bandages. He looked steadier, but his shoulders were still tight, like he was waiting for the next alarm. The medical officer nodded and left them alone. "You should lie down," Lucas said, joining her. "In a minute," Mara replied. "I want to watch it disappear." He followed her gaze out the window. The outpost was already becoming a small shape against the vast planet, a fragile thing that had somehow survived. "You know," Lucas said, "Command is going to ask a lot of questions." Mara smiled faintly. "They always do. They'll want reports, explanations, exact reasons why the storm collapsed early. And we'll give them data," she said, "charts, readings, numbers." "But not the whole story," he said. She looked at him. "No, not the whole story." Silence settled between them again, but this time it felt peaceful. After a while, Mara stood. "Okay, now I need to lie down." The medical bay was quiet, lights soft and steady. The bed felt too comfortable, almost unreal. As soon as she lay down, exhaustion crashed over her like a wave. Lucas remained standing near the door. "You don't have to stay," she said, eyes half closed. "I know," he replied. "I want to." She didn't argue. Sleep took her quickly, deep and heavy. When Mara woke, she didn't know how much time had passed. The ship felt different, quieter, more settled. Her body still ached, but the sharp edge was gone. Lucas was sitting in the chair beside her bed, asleep, his head tilted slightly forward. He looked younger like this. Less like a commander, more like just a man who had been very tired and very scared and had done his best anyway. She watched him for a moment, then carefully shifted. The movement woke him instantly. "You're awake," he said, sitting up straight. "Yeah," she replied. "Guess we both needed that," he nodded. "We're in stable orbit now. Storm activity on the surface has dropped to safe levels." "So it's really over," she said. "Yes." The word felt strange. Over, final. A few hours later, they were called to debrief separately. Long rooms. Calm voices. People who had not been there but wanted to understand. Mara answered every question honestly. She talked about system failures, manual reroutes, unexpected feedback loops. She kept her voice steady. What she did not explain was how fear had sharpened her focus instead of breaking it, or how a human hand holding another human hand in the dark could matter as much as any piece of technology. Lucas gave his own report. Clean, direct, precise. When it was finished, they met again in the common area. "You look like you survived an interrogation," Mara said. He smiled. "You too." They sat with cups of warm drink between their hands, letting the ship's gentle vibration remind them that they were moving forward. "What happens now?" she asked. "We return to base," Lucas said. "Command will probably ground us for a while. Evaluation, recovery," she nodded. "I don't mind." He hesitated. "Mara, about after that." She waited. "I don't want to pretend anymore," he said. "Not about what we went through. Not about what it means." Her heart beat faster, but her voice stayed calm. "Neither do I." There was no dramatic moment, no sudden movement, just a quiet understanding settling into place. Weeks later, the storm on Kepri 9 became a subject of study across human space. Scientists argued about models and theories. Engineers debated whether the outpost design had been lucky or brilliant. Reports were written. Simulations were run. One conclusion remained constant. The storm should not have broken apart the way it did. Human interference had introduced unpredictability the planetary system could not handle. Not force, not dominance, chaos, and choice. Mara and Lucas were mentioned briefly in official records, names attached to actions. Responsibilities fulfilled. But among the crews who read between the lines, the story traveled differently. About two humans who refused to wait for rescue. About hands-on solutions and stubborn courage. About standing together when isolation would have been easier. On the journey back to Earth space, Mara and Lucas often walked the observation decks together. They talked about simple things, food they missed, places they wanted to see again, plans that felt possible now. One evening, as stars stretched endlessly outside the window, Mara stopped walking. "Do you think humanity belongs out there?" she asked quietly. "On worlds that clearly don't care if we survive?" Lucas considered this. "I think the universe doesn't care either way," he said. "But humans care, that's the difference," she smiled. "Even when it hurts. Especially then." They stood side by side watching the stars. Locked inside by the rain, they had been forced to stop pretending, forced to face fear, truth, and each other without distractions. Now free of the storm, they carried that honesty forward. Humanity would keep reaching outward, facing dangers it didn't fully understand, changing things simply by being there. And wherever humans went next, they would bring the same thing they always did. Not perfection, not control, but resilience, connection, and the quiet refusal to face the dark alone.